Hey everyone, this is Allison from Alley Creations. How are you? Surviving. I'm going to put out good energy that things are going to be okay, and I'm going to have a really good birthday, and that everything that's owed to me is going to come. Today I'm going to read The Key to the Universe, and we left off at chapter 4. Well, 3. We're going to read chapter 4. Buckle up. Before I start, please like, it's free, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Get comfy. And please, if you have it within you to share and care, love donations are always welcomed. I'm in destitute. Chapter 4. The circle as the aura and the ring pass not. Quote, just as the square is the symbol of the 4 sacred forces of powers, H.A so the circle shows the boundary within infinity that no man, even in spirit or diva or Diane, Kohan, can cross. The Secret Doctrine, Blavatsky, 1:159. Applied to the circle symbolizes the sacred auric egg, which envelopes him. Quote, like the yolk of an egg, the future embryo, by the albumin in shell. This to the perceptions of higher beings from other planes makes of each individuality an oval sphere of more or less radiancy. The Stoic teaching is that after its involution into matter, the evolution of each soul takes place along a spiral pathway within a series of centric spheres of differing densities, whose centers are all within the physical shell, corresponding to the concentric globes forming the earth chain. The finer interpreting all the denser. Since the law followed by the cosmic is also followed by the individual manifestation, we refer the reader to what we have said elsewhere concerning those interpreting spheres, as it describes the corresponding makeup of man's aura. When the soul has manifested the most essential and characteristic possibilities of the smallest, inmost, and densest sphere of an aura, it breaks through that confining shell, following a spiral path, and inborn into a larger sphere of consciousness, being or orbit of evolution, whose forces will aid in perfecting and completing the possibilities of the former sphere. For instance, as long as man's consciousness responds only to the sense impressions from the physical world, he is confined within the sphere of matter and consciousness, which vibrates to the physical plane. But as soon as his sense organs are attuned to the vibrations of the finer and larger sphere of substance and consciousness, which surrounds and interprets the lesser, he is born into the astral world or sphere of his aura, called the hall of learning. That's real. And so on into still higher spheres. Only when man is able to vibrate in unison with all the spheres which surround him and has brought into expression the potencies of them all, he has completed his evolution of man as man. The physical man and the physical globe, like a seed or egg, therefore contains within him, in germ, all the process, forces, powers, materials necessary for him to manifest his godlike possibilities. But the physical seed of the real man stands in the center of 7 centric spheres, in each of which certain of his possibilities must manifest. And to evolve into and manifest in these various spheres, the shell of his physical limitations, like the shell of the egg or seed, must be opened through the ground of the germ already present within that shell. To more fully explain this point and emphasize the importance of the teaching, responds chiefly to the vibrations of the physical globe. Those things which he can see, hear, taste, handle, and cannot comprehend or function in the globes belonging to the psychic and physical planes. Man must ultimately function and gain experience on all 7 globes at the same time, checking up, balancing, and perfecting the experience of one by that gained on the other, thus rounding out his 7-fold nature into real man. That's why I keep saying to raise your vibes, to be positive, to put light out there. Yes, you need to be realistic and logical with a lot of things, but we need to get out of this 3D nightmare. Only thus can be gained mastery over the portion of goods given him by his Father in heaven. As it contains in potentiality all that his later evolution can unfold in any one cycle of manifestations, man's aura may be compared to a schoolboy's trunk packed for a distant journey, for it contains all the goods given him by his Father, together with the provisions necessary for the journey itself. The aura is called luminous egg, or invisible magnetic sphere, in which every man is enveloped. So are the animals, the plants, and even the minerals. It is the direct emanation from the atomic ray in its triple aspect of creator, preserver, and destroyer, regenerator, and from Buddha manas. The 7 aspect of the individual aura is the faculty of assuming that the form of its body and becoming the radiant, the luminous orogenides. It is the strictly speaking, which at times becomes the form called Maravi Rupa. It is also the material from which the adept forms his astral bodies from the orogenides and the Maravi Rupa downwards. Very, very tiny print. Just as the decimal system was formerly esoteric, so was all information concerning the nature of the aura, until some time after the teachings concerning it were brought to the Western world by Blavatsky. There is always, however, a good and wise reason for thus guarding certain truths from one generation and revealing them to a subsequent. Since the days of the Atlanteans, when much dangerous knowledge was extant concerning the performance of magic, the aura has been known to be the storehouse of the forces called into activity in magical procedures. And because of the degrading use made of the knowledge by those who use it unlawfully, those who faithfully follow their divine instructors are carefully taught the responsibility incurred by those who publicly give out information likely to bring upon mankind a catastrophe similar to that which destroyed Atlantis. But in the present age, when there is a tendency among certain classes of scholars to decry the existence or possibility of what is called magic and belittle the necessity of understanding the mysteries, it is the policy of the great teachers to stimulate such lines of investigation by revealing certain ancient truths long hidden from the general public. Here we are. The great law today is just as inexorable as in former ages, and no firebrand of Stoic knowledge will be given directly to man. The way to the higher knowledge may be pointed out. The great teachers may say, search here, but only the diligent and the pure in heart, the true and faithful, will be given knowledge which, in the hands of the ignorant, the ambiguous, or impure, might be turned to the injury and degradation of the race. I'm going to put a pause right there for a second. If anybody's on my Telegram and watched the episode of High Vibes Up, where Jason Q gets his galactic story told to him, we have to do our own research. This is why only by the general advance of the race can the hidden things of one cycle as evolution unfolds mankind become the revealed of succeeding cycles. It is the same law by which the inner and hidden petals of the rose are revealed only as the flower as a whole advances in its unfoldment. And just as the evolving soul steps over his ring, pass not only as he vibrates to the rate of the larger sphere, so with the race. As we have said elsewhere, quote, in another sense, the circle is the individual ring, pass not the limit of the auric zone, which every true discipline should put around himself, and whose gates, corresponding to the centers of the body, must be open and closed at will to admit or exclude that which he chooses, end quote. This ring is a boundary which separates each of the concentric spheres mentioned above, but the next finer but is a ring passed not to the substance and consciousness of the denser sphere only until the vibrations of the latter have been raised to harmonize or become one with the rate of the finer sphere, whereupon there is no barrier between the two. It is because of the ring passed not, like a shell around every sphere, that at every decisive step from one sphere of consciousness to the next higher, the student is met with the axiom, know thyself. For the knowledge of the self must include a knowledge of how to raise the vibrations of the sphere in which the aspirant is manifesting until they become one with those of the higher sphere, which B desires to enter. Each student must live his life from within and unfold his possibilities through his own efforts and through the bringing into manifestation of the powers which each has its potentiality within. This is the basic reason why we oppose all negative forms of abnormally breaking through the ring by the aid of alcohol, drugs, or psychic forces invoked while in a negative state. As we explained elsewhere, quote, another way in which the doors of the aura or ring are frequently broken open is by placing yourself in a passive, non-resisting state and making the demand for psychic experiences, or sitting for development, as it is called, something quite different from entering the silence for spiritual communion. In this practice, you are placing yourself in such a negative state that any entity dwelling even on the lower astral plane can help you break open the doors. This either destroys the doors or abnormally forces the development of psychic centers instead of unfolding them as natural accompaniment of spiritual growth. Truth. In one sense, the aura is the Holy Ghost, the sin against which is the perversion of the auric forces and the destruction of the centers, while each individual and each globe has its ring pass not. It is the ring pass not of the cosmos, which is referred to in the quotation which heads this chapter and also in the following. Quote, no spirits except the recorders, Lipka, have ever crossed the forbidden line of the ring, nor will any do so until the day of the next Paralaya, for it is the boundary that separates the finite, however infinite in man's sight, from the truly infinite, end quote. By the way, Lipka is in Awaspe, and after I do the Book of Wars, I'm going to read that portion. From all that has been said, we see that the circle, as a symbol of the source from which all manifestation proceeds, is no arbitrary or man-made symbol, but is inherent in nature herself. Therefore, let the circle remind you that you have the potency and power of the unmanifested overshadowing you, that you are dwelling in a mighty sphere of unmanifested powers, which it is your duty to understand, unfold, and bring into manifestation, you can pass through the evolution of the numerals and reach the perfection of your cycle of manifestation in number 10. Let it remind you of the source from whence you have received the portion of goods given you by your Father in heaven. You took your journey into this far country of material embodiment, and that these goods are the materials out of which you must furnish your mansion in heaven, or the immortal spirit vehicle, which you must ultimately obtain, you can manifest the real self, or God within all planes. Going within, raising your vibes, working on your biofield, all your chakra systems. That's what it's talking about. And I agree with everything there. She's amazing. Chapter 5, the symbol of the circle with the dot in the middle. Quote, the infinite was entirely unknown and diffused. No light before the luminous point violently broke through into vision. End quote, Zohar. The monad, or point, is the origin. Sorry, guys, this is all screwed up. Let's repeat that again. The monad, or point, is the original and is the unit from which follows the entire numeral system, end quote. The Secret Doctrine, Blavatsky. Morgue Official talks about the monad quite a lot. So if you want more information on ontological mathematics and like his Hyperionism, go check him out. He's really good. I don't agree with a lot of stuff that he puts out when it pertains to certain things, but a lot of his stuff makes a lot of sense on the mathematic end. The point within the circle with the dot is a symbol which must be considered both with the circle and the one, as it is concerned connecting link between the two. The dot within the circle is the first manifestation of the latent deity or deity in activity, the first cause, unity within eternity, and the first differentiation from the homogeneous state represented by the circle. Quote, in the metaphysical world, the circle with its one central point in it has no number and is called, oh boy, Anupadaka, parentless and numberless, for it can fall under no calculations. It is a center of energy, which I shall, for the present, call the Logos. It is called the Verbum by the Christians, and it is the divine Christos, which is eternal in the bosom of his Father. Quote, in him is an illimitable abyss of glory, and from it there goeth forth one little spark, which marketh all the glory of the sun, and of the moon, and of the stars, end quote. The dot within the circle is the sorry guys, this page is all messed up, casual soul or personal God of each individual, while the higher self is the casual soul encircled by the experiences garnered by the personalities in which it incarnates life after life and stored up as individuality in the higher self. In the individual man, the dot is the manifestation of the ray shot out in the beginning from first of the seven Elohim, the seven flames, and becomes the creative dot in the individual, which remains throughout the entire kalpa as a nucleus and overshadowing principle. This dot periodically sends down its one ray into manifestation through a personality. For a ray must incarnate again and again until all the experiences represented by the cycle of numbers from 1 to 9 are stored up in the higher self. Thus, the dot and the 1 with the circle together make the higher self 10. It is the potency of this dot in all numbers stimulated by the overshadowing of the dot itself, which causes their evolution or unfoldment. In turn, this dot in the individual is overshadowed by the casual soul of the universe. This is not the absolute or causeless cause, the fathomless eternal, but is that which the Christians call God, the Lord, and the Hindus Ishvara, the Lord. If we consider the dot as a bright flame in the center of a circle, or say the pure white light of the sun in the center of the zodiac, as the sun sends forth its rays, they manifest the 7 colors of the spectrum, and as each ray touches the circumference, it makes a dot of its own color. The sun in the center will therefore represent the higher self, or the divine dot, while the many lesser dots on the circumference will represent its many personalities, each manifesting but one shade of the central light, and each becoming pure white light only as all are drawn into the center. The entire circle will then become a globe of pure white radiance and take its place in turn as a dot upon the circumference of a still mightier circle whose center is God. In the case of an avatar, it is this overshadowing dot or casual soul of the universe which sends into manifestation of one. The Son, who united with the Father, becomes not one of the 7 rays of or flames, Elohim, but the one great ray in which all the 7 rays are united. Hence, all avatars are like pearls strung on mighty manifestation of the one God, just as all the lives of individual are strung upon the individualized ray from one of the seven Elohim, the higher self. Speaking of an ancient record written on palm leaves and illustrating the symbol of primordial beings, Meme Blavatsky says, quote, on the first page, in an immaculate white disc within a dull black ground. On the following page, the same disc, but with a central point. The first, the student knows, represents cosmos in eternity, before the reawakening of still slumbering energy, the emmanuation of the world in later systems. The point in the heretofore immaculate disc, space and eternity, and Pralaya denotes the dawn of differentiation. It is the point in the mundane egg, the germ within which will become the universe, the all, the boundless, periodical cosmos, end quote. The circle with the dot is the universal hieroglyph of the sun in the center of the zodiac, the manifester or giver of light, life and energy to its system. It also represents Jacob in the midst of his 12 sons and Jesus in the midst of his 12 disciples. Among the Egyptians, the dot or sun is Ra, and in the Book of the Dead is thus described, quote, I am Ra at his first appearance. I am the great God, self-reposed. His names together compose the cycle of the gods. O Ra, in thine egg, who resist up in thine orb and shinest from thine horizon, end quote. In a later chapter, Ra makes a prayer as follows, quote, I shine forth out of the egg, which is in the unseen, unmanifested world. Let not my hand be repulsed by the divine circle of the great God. I am come to do the will of my heart out of the abode of flame, which I extinguished when I came forth, end quote. The symbol also has its reflection or correspondence in nature as the nucleus in the egg. The nucleus has the same significance as the dot and the sun, the source of life to its system, for without the vitalizing creative power emanating from its nucleus, no egg could be fructified or developed. The Druids taught this same mystery by their symbolic dance around the later came to be the maypole. As we have said elsewhere, quote, in the later symbolism, the dance was performed around the sacred oak, and still later, if an oak was not available, the masculine principle of fire or the sun was symbolized by the upright maypole, while the feminine principle was indicated by the circle drawn on the ground, the two having the same significance as a creative symbol. As the dot within the circle, or lingam, and the yoni, all of which later became degraded into objects of phallic worship. Therefore, just as the Christian ceremonies of Easter bring to our minds the great cosmic fact of the resurrection of the sun, or the renewal of life force, the Christ force, of nature from the tomb of winter, as well as the personal significance of resurrection, the Christ in each heart. So the bonfires, maypoles, which their attendant dances and ceremonies had the same double significance and symbolized the same grand truths to early inhabitants of Ireland, Britain, and Gaul. The masculine principle of fire had been again descended to fructify Mother Earth, that she might bring forth her increase, end quote. Quote, the dot in the center is always a small circle in the old picture written and is present name as the D-O/T names the gift God. In the Indian Sign Language, the interior smaller circle names the son of the mother or the descendant, which is its meaning today in Celtic alphabet, end quote. Oh, what's with these small little, they're so tiny, these quotes. Quote, philosophy, however, could never have found its conception of a logical, universal, and absolute deity if it had not mathematical point within the circle upon which to base its speculations. It is only the manifested point, lost to our senses after its pragmatic appearance in its finalitude and incognizability of the circle, and makes a reconciliation between philosophy and theology possible on the condition that the later should abandon its crude materialistic dogmas, end quote. We may think of our aura as a circle, but we should think of our higher self as a dot, or God within this circle, the manifested source from whence emanates the light, life, and love of our existence. And only because of the source within have we the power to bring into manifestation and evolve the cohort forces which we find within the circle of our being. Hence, only when we realize and manifest the power of our indwelling creative dot to bring forth and use to the limits of our circle of manifestation all that is contained therein, can we welcome the true I. Every unit of life is the center or dot of its own universe circle, has its own sphere of activity and influence and rate of vibration, and it is our own center of cosmic energy, a microcosm, an individualized reflection in time and space of the one life of the circle. The dot may also be looked upon as a spiritual star of initiation, which overshadows the candidate from the time when the spiritual light broke through into vision or was born in its consciousness. But we become aware of it only when we look toward it, feel its life-giving warmth, and see its light streaming down upon us and forming the straight and narrow path, number 1. The leadeth unto salvation, mastery. Look at it from above. The dot is seen to be the end of the axis of a sphere, or aspect of number 1. It appears within the circle when the world mother breathes upon the waters of chaos. Let the dot within the circle remind you that no matter how dark and chaotic the circle of your life may seem, you have within you the dot of pure white spiritual light, the sun of your soul, whose rays can unfold and illuminate every condition in your life and help you to manifest their highest possibilities. If you will but only open the door of your heart and let them in, but only as you fearlessly and determinately and from the Christ consciousness within say, quote, let there be light, end quote, understanding all that this implies and all that will result, can enforce, start the circle of darkness or chaos in your spirit life to revolving, and the spirit chaos in your spiritual life to revolving, and the spirit of God, the white dot or dove, move on the troubled waters of your life and evolve into it the one, and then on through the rest of the decade back to oneness with the circle in the number 10. Do not be appalled at that which the light reveals within you. For the so-called things of evil, those which are unredeemed, will first be stirred up, that they may come into the light and be transmuted, spiritualized, and redeemed. Remember, the divine dot or spiritual sun within must shine if evolution is to take place. That's very true. We have to have evil. We have to have bad things happen in order for things to emerge. So I'm going to read chapter 6, and this will be the last chapter for today. Hang on. Chapter 6, the number 1. Quote, O descendant of Bharata, see wonders in numbers unseen before within my body. O Gudakesha, see today the whole universe, including everything movable and immovable, all in one, end quote. The Bhagavad Gita. Quote, the sacredness of numbers, beings, with the great first, the one, and ends only with the naught or zero, symbol of the infinite and boundless circle, which represents the universe. All the intervening figures, in whatever combination or however multiplied, represents philosophical ideas from vague outlines down to a definitively established scientific axiom relating either to moral or physical fact in the nature, end quote. Isis unveiled Blavatsky. As we have said elsewhere, quote, all even numbers are mundane and pertain to the physical plane, while all odd numbers are divine. They contain something which cannot be measured by the two forces, positive and negative, always operative on the physical plane. Amongst the Pythagoreans, old numbers were connected with the major deities, while even numbers were assigned to the inferior and terrestrial gods, end quote. In the Yi King, an ancient Chinese book on symbolism, referencing to cosmogony and man and to the purpose of life, the initial symbols used are yang, male, and yin, female. Yang is associated with heaven and sun, light, and odd numbers, while yin is associated with the moon, the earth, darkness, and even numbers. Odd numbers are considered sacred because when we attempt to divide them into equal parts, they leave the monad or the god standing unaffected between them. Thus, 3 equals 1 plus 1 plus 1, 5 equals 2 plus 1 plus 2, 7 equals 3 plus 1 plus 3. Thus, they reveal the supreme deity in the midst of his works. Even numbers are those which can be divided into 2 equal parts without revealing the one God in their midst. When odd numbers are divided, one part will always be odd, representing the divine, and one even representing the manifested of the divine, i.e. 7 equal 3. The divine plus 4, the mundane. The most potential odd numbers are composed of trinities, and each of which is odd. Thus, 3 equals 3 times 1, 9 equals 3 times 3, 15 equals 3 times 5, 21 equals 3 times 7, 27 equals 3 times 9. While even numbers can always be measured by the pairs of opposites, they can also be separated, except 2, which is simply 2 units, into 2 equal and 2 or more unequal parts. Thus, 10 equal 5 plus 5, also 1 plus 9, 3 plus 7, 2 plus 8. Even numbers whose equal divisions can be further divided into equal parts are called evenly even. For example, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, etc. Those even numbers whose equal divisions cannot be further divided into equal parts are called evenly odd. For example, 6, 10, 14, 28, 56, etc. We now come to the consideration of the first sifra, or the number 1, the monad of Pythagoras. In this number are the other 9 hidden. It is indivisible. It is also incapable of multiplication. Divide one by itself and it still remains one. Multiply one by itself and it still remains one and unchanged. This it is a fitting representative of the great unchangeable Father of all. Number one is the symbol of unity, indivisibly, individually. It is that which is born from spirit, the dot, and therefore divine. Quote, for God is superlative in his unity. There is no equal unto him. What number canst thou place before one? End quote. It is primordial substance, undifferentiated, also cosmic ideation. Since one stands by itself and is indivisible, it is considered no number, but represents perfection, harmony, order, good, and God. It is the only number that does not have one aspect above or pertaining to the heavens, and one lower pertaining to the earth. It symbolizes the deity descending to earth in an undifferentiated state, the one God without attributes. It also symbolizes the descent of the light when, at the beginning of the cycle of manifestation of this system, the first day of creation, the gods, the sevenfold Elohim, said, quote, let there be light, end quote. And the dot within the circle sent forth the ray to manifest in matter. In the descent of the creative aspect of the one life, the Christ power into chaos, that chaos might become cosmos, evolved and be redeemed. Number one represents the principle of unity, which underlies all numbers. By multiplication, it creates all others. By multiplied by itself to infinity, it always retains its unity. Since it's the first manifestation of the unmanifested, one represents the unity of all forms of life in the one life, or brotherhood of man and nature. This is the mathematical basis for what we have said elsewhere. Quote, all life comes from the one life of the absolute and normally should evolve back to God in perfect purity and harmony, end quote. Quote, as all souls are but differing expressions of the one life, each must bring back into one life a special experience. Unity does not mean an everlasting occurrence of one experience for all, but all experiences in the one. As each different part of the body has its own function, the experience of which is subject to and is registered in the brain. The sum total of the experiences of all organs and parts being necessary to complete a man, so are all souls' experiences comprised in the one life, end quote. It is unity, but not uniformity. The number one also symbolizes Adam Kadmon, the first man. Since man is the only erect animal, the only one whose spinal column is vertical instead of horizontal, one symbolizes man's power to stand erect, also uprightness of both body and character. It also symbolizes the strength and narrow path which the personality must follow to reach the divine or Christ consciousness. It is a line of spiritual aspiration, while It is a line of spiritual aspiration which must ascend from the heart of man to unite the human with the divine. It is the line which continuation unifies the personality, the little I, which the higher self, the dot, to form the real self, the silver thread which unites us with the master, the unity of man with God, the capital I, which can stand alone, Jesus expressed this same idea when he said, quote, I and my Father are one, end quote. Script letters are symbols which have been modified by modern ideas that they have little occult significance, yet they do express the idea of dependence one upon the other, a later development of tribal and community life. So to merge the little I into the I, we must learn to stand alone, for the little I could never become the capitalized I until it had ceased to depend on others for its meaning. As the personality learns to stand alone and ascend the straight and narrow path, emerges into the overshadowing dot, the dot spreads out as sheltering wings above, fills out and enlarges, and also makes a firm foundation below. Thus, big I. When the little I has reached up to the dot in the center of its orbit, it has become the I and is able to stand alone in the presence of the master. It must then, quote, do the works of its Father in heaven, end quote, or continue the extension of the path in the higher realms and complete the diameter of the circle. Number 1 also symbolizes the magic wand with which the magician performs his great work. Among man's 7 principles, sorry guys, this is all like grossed over. Among men's 7 principles, 1 represents Atma, the ray from the divine, one with the Father, through which man becomes one with the all. Like the circle, number 1 is a natural geometric figure. For using our previous symbol of the sphere, if any line of force, either from within or from without, acts upon it, it will begin to revolve and thus generate an axis, or the vertical line which bisects the circle, forming the figure 1. Therefore, no other figure could be the first of the numerical system, for 1 is the figure generated by the first manifestation of motion in the cosmos. 1 is positive and masculine in its characteristics, as it is the outgoing ray of the divine proceeding from the negative or subjective into the positive or objective life. This symbolism of the number 1 is confirmed in nature. In animal life, we find in the developing egg a straight line called the primitive streak as the first positive sign of the character of the future form and forerunner of the spinal column, the positive supporting factor that enables it to stand erect. In vegetable life, we find that out of the heart of the seed, its dot within the encircling husk, the first manifestation of life causes a sprout to shoot upward and to tap root downwards as the positive and negative expressions of the dot. These burst the shell or husk and form a straight vertical line, which bisects the seed and enables the plant to stand alone on the independent manifesting individual or 1. Whenever your attention is called to the number 1, let it remind you of the one God, the one life, the oneness of mankind, of the brotherhood of man, the power of selfhood or self-reliance, dignity, rulership, the wand of the magician, the rod of power, the power to bring forth the self from the divine dot within. Through the all-embracing power of the circle, let it remind you of the unity of nature, man and God, the union of the human with the divine through the following of the straight and narrow path, upward until the personality is merged into the Father in heaven, And you could say with Jesus, quote, I and my Father are one, end quote. And that ends chapter 6. So I hope you enjoyed that. I sure did. There was a lot of tidbits in there that definitely is amazing. Talking about the shell, the aura, the biofield, the many layers that go on. The one, you are the one, the circle, the dot. Very interesting stuff, and stuff that back then you would think wasn't common knowledge because we're only being exploded with this stuff now, but this stuff has been around for forever. Sandlot, gotta love that movie, even though it's bad. So yeah, next time we'll pick up on chapter 7, the first letter, Alf, from the Hebrew alphabet. But I hope you guys enjoyed that. Please like, share, and subscribe. This is an incredible book. I'm sorry I messed up a bunch. Again, this is a very old book that was scanned in that have things not right, rips, stains, and it's very hard for me to see. And I need reading glasses, but not the ones that grandma gets at CVS. Like I really need a prescription, and I just, like, I could take my teeth down right now. So yeah, I just thank you for bearing with me. My circumstances aren't the greatest, and as much as I try to take care of myself, things do cost money. I just don't have it. But I really want to thank everybody for bearing in with me and overlooking some of these things as I try to pronounce words that are clearly, we know what they mean, right? And a lot of this stuff is from the Vedics and India. And I cannot, for the life of me, pronounce a lot of their stuff. So I do apologize. It's not without trying. Please make sure, if you're interested, follow me on Telegram. I'm also thinking about making a Patreon for books that I cannot read on certain platforms. And again, reading everything in the time of now. I just don't have the streaming platform or the other things because nothing connects. You have to buy all these things and download all these crazy apps in order to get information out to people. So I'm trying to see if I could work around that, because I definitely would love to do like live streams with people chatting and interacting. But I'm trying to figure out if I can do a reading and then go live with sharing my screen and then me being on the little top, and that you could see in, like, you know, I can laugh at myself watching me and then you guys watch me. I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out. If anybody knows if that is something that can be done, please let me know. Again, I don't like to I don't charge any, my stuff is free. I just ask for love donations if you have it. But there are books that I really would love to cover that I can't do it on a normal platform. And it seems like that spot's a little safer to do stuff for that reason. So there's more than that, just that book. So we'll see if that works out, but I need to start making a living and consistently. Damn New York. Okay, sorry for my rant. I'm trying to go within and be the one and manifest better abundance for myself, and knowing that a lot of people are getting this out too, and people are starting to like understand how far back in the capacity of what's happening back then. all these things are coming back and recycling now into our consciousness. Like, why isn't like all these people knowing about this book? There's a lot of books that people like don't know about, and they really don't know. So I want to shed light on these things. I think it's important. And yeah, have a good night. I'll see you on the next one. Love and light to all of you. Happy new moon and April Fools. There's no fooling no one this year. This world sucks and it needs to change. Ha ha, it's not a joke. Bye, guys.